Muchachos y muchachas, Sean P. Diddy Combs has been arrested and indicted as of today. Last night, he was arrested and made huge headlines. He was in Manhattan. He was at a hotel where he was arrested. And this is a long time coming because of the, I guess, primer lawsuits and allegations that we have seen earlier this year. I believe last year as well, but a lot of the accusations were really, surfaced this year. If you guys don't know, his longtime ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, who was at one point a pop star herself, really kicked off all of these allegations. I believe this was at the tail end of 2023. Don't quote me on that, but she was one of the first to really, bring these allegations to the public eye in such a massive way. And the things that she alleged that P. Diddy did were just horrific things that this was like all the tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists that did, view the Hollywood and the rap industry and all this and all suspected these things. This was literally illustrated for us. So the things she alleged P. Diddy did against her were things like violence, sexual exploitation, intimidation, drugging her. I mean, just like an array of horrific things. Now, Cassie Ventura later settled with P. Diddy, and I believe her lawsuit was against his company, if I'm not mistaken. He was a member of the board or head of the board of that company, so the easiest thing to do was to settle. Now, a lot of people had different reactions about that, how the outcome became about. That she should have stayed her way and done like some sort of criminal, let it turn into some like criminal prosecution, things like this. I cannot stand in the place of Cassie Ventura and especially the horrors that she has experienced through P. Diddy, especially with all of the corroborated witness statements and other people that came forward, such as Lil Rod. We'll get into that in just a second. So I can't be a judge. It does seem to be that he finally is getting some sort of justice because he is indicted as of today. So maybe she had some sort of insight way before then that she might as well, settle, and this criminal prosecution would come anyway, right? So anyway, after Cassie Ventura filed that lawsuit, I believe there was like a few other people or victims that came forward. But one that was way more prominent than a lot of other ones besides Cassie, because Cassie's was huge, was Lil Rod. Now, Lil Rod formed a lawsuit against P. Diddy. I want to say, and I did a whole series on this because if you are curious on the elaborate details of this lawsuit and the horrific things that are being accused of Diddy, I would suggest to go watch that series of videos. I will link it in my description below. Now, it's important to understand because a lot of, again, what was suspected of the rap industry of Hollywood is in this lawsuit. At least these are some very, well articulated claims with evidence. It'd be one thing to accuse them, but to provide evidence to back it up is another thing, right? So Lil Rod did a lot of that. And so when Lil Rod filed his lawsuit, that's where a lot of this really surfaced up and bubbled up to the public eye even more. Now, of course, initially Diddy did, that kind of seemed a little rhymey. He did deny the allegations, said that they were false, that there was some sort of conspiracy against him, that they're all lies. And then later on, I believe it was CNN that actually obtained the footage of him hitting Cassie, dragging her through a hotel like she alleged in her lawsuit, which further vindicated her, further fueled the allegations and legitimized them, right? And so a lot of this did validate the claims that were being alleged against Diddy. Okay, all that being said, if you want to go recap, again, I'm going to list those videos in the description below. I would suggest it because like we do on this channel, actual factuals matter, okay? Anyway, so Diddy arrested last night. He was indicted today. I have the indictment. I have read a great deal of time of the indictment. I understand what is being alleged. A lot of it is summarizations, but there are parts that I do want to scope in on and just kind of elaborate that the seriousness of these allegations and what he's being prosecuted for. So with that being said, let's just jump into the indictment. Okay, so here's the indictment right in front of us. Obviously, the top and the counts are going to summarize a lot of this activity, but I do want to skip down to the meat and potatoes of this indictment, in my personal opinion. Again, if you want to read this indictment on your own time, you want to do it slow, you want to read through the introduction, I'm going to link it in my description below. But there are some things that I just want to cover and get to the point. Right here, it does mention in the indictment what he is being prosecuted for sex trafficking, exploitation, a racketeering enterprise. It does go into the associates and members of his organization, how they did enable this whole operation and scheme to permit. It says here on page 6, Combs and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise wielded the power and prestige of Combs' role at Combs' business to intimidate, threaten, and lure female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Now, a romantic relationship in this particular context, I believe they're talking about the Romeo pimping / loverboy method. Now, if you guys have ever heard of that, then you know what I'm already going to talk about. I'm not going to go into super depth, but basically this is a tactic that any predator, trafficker, pimp, or they usually go into to ensorcel a victim. So what happens is they basically promise, this whole life of, love and, building a future and all of these great things. And it's especially, the context of P. Diddy being so famous and having so much money. This is even worse for the victims, that get ensorcelled into this whole orbit, because they are promised like this big life of riches and, they do get gifts and stuff like that. A lot of people have this mentality, or they have this perspective that it's the girl's fault, that it's the woman's fault. But it's still a predatory practice to have the intent to do this in order to just flip them over and, actually abuse them and exploit them, sell them off, things like this, in which in this context, this is exactly what this is alleging. So then it says, Combs then used force, threats of force, coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers that Combs referred to as, among other things, freak-offs. So this whole thing, if you guys have seen the movie Eyes Wide Shut, and you know that scene, you know the scene, right? It is the scene where, Tom Cruise goes into, and spoiler alert, you're probably going to hear a spoiler. He goes into this big old party. It's really freaky, right? There's a lot of naked people in masks, just doing this big old thing, this big old orgy, right? It's basically what this is. This is like Eyes Wide Shut, but in real life. This is a big, huge deal. Okay, this is a rap mogul. This is Sean P. Diddy Combs, who is, world famous. Okay, who has dated world famous people, right? And here it is illustrated right in front of us. Now it does describe freak-offs were elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded. Okay, so it does seem to be that he recorded these acts. Why? Okay, why? To blackmail. That's what it seems like to me. And so that brings me further questions about this, because throughout this entire indictment, there were a lot of details compared to Lil Rod's lawsuit that seemed to be left out, right? So anyway, I'll kind of touch on that in just a second. So these acts were electronically recorded. In arranging the freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the Combs enterprise, transported and caused to be transported commercial sex workers across state lines and internationally. Freak-offs occurred regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days. Okay? Listen to this. I want you guys to understand what I'm saying here. This is what the indictment is talking about, right? The freak-offs occurred regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days, and often involved multiple commercial sex workers, okay? Like, we're talking about people who, this is alleged that people were forced, they were coerced and threatened into performing, exploited sex acts for days, right? This is crazy. During freak-offs, Combs, who's P. Diddy, distributed a variety of controlled substances to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant, which is another tactic, by the way. This is a way to bait and reel. It's like hook and bait the victims into continually doing these things. I've seen a lot of stories, where the pimp, the trafficker will get the girl hooked on these really, really addictive controlled substances, such as heroin, such as cocaine. And that pretty much gets the girl hooked into coming back, because the pimp who takes a majority, or if not all, the money, will then buy them more controlled substances. And so, then they'll send the girl off to, basically service more Johns, get them to come back. They will give them their narcotic, and then they'll send them off again. It's just a repeated cycle. So this just adds a lot more maliciousness to these acts, right? No, saying that in my personal opinion, he knew what to keep these girls on in order for them to keep coming back and keep compliant and obedient with his demands. Okay, it continues. Sometimes unbeknownst, I didn't mean to go that far. Sometimes unbeknownst to the victims, Combs kept videos. He filmed the victims engaging in sex acts with commercial sex workers. After freak-offs, Combs and the victims typically received IV fluids to recover from physical exertion and drug use. Okay, so what did we learn through that tiny paragraph that was jam-packed with all these details, right? So first of all, this was an eyes wide shut looking scene, okay? That lasted not just for hours. It wasn't just like an all-night thing. These things lasted for days. Days upon days upon days upon days. We will go into some detail that the victim did try to escape this whole ordeal of freak-off, right? So this thing must have been so bad that these victims were trying to escape it. But not only that, he had to keep these victims on drugs. And on top of that, they exerted so much energy and overexerted themselves that P. Diddy actually had to hire an IV service to help them recover. Like, if that's not occultic, if that's not satanic, I don't know what is. Okay, so I wanted to touch a little bit on the video recordings. So what also makes me think that there's a lot more to this than what they're even indicting him for. In the lawsuit that Lil Rod filed against P. Diddy, he mentioned some celebrities like Cuba Gooding Jr. that was actually pictured, and he brought evidence to support what he was alleging, that Cuba Gooding Jr. would attend some of these parties, right? So in my personal opinion, this is just my personal opinion. This is what I think. I don't know this for fact. I'm not stating this as fact. I personally believe that some people really got blackmailed. I believe that this could have been a bigger operation where Sean P. Diddy Combs, who is a worldwide mogul, rap world, mogul, could have implicated some really important people, such as politicians, such as other celebrities, to maybe manhandle them into saying certain things that it contains propaganda. Who knows? But these were actual recordings that he filmed for whatever purposes he had behind that. All right. So closing off that everybody that was included in these freak-offs, including Diddy, had to receive some sort of IV drip, which just to me is beyond. All right. Then it goes into how further his members and associates of the Combs enterprise, further permitted and enabled this whole thing to operate. It says here, including high-ranking supervisors, members, associates of the Combs enterprise, including high-ranking supervisors, security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and other Combs business employees, facilitated the freak-offs by, among other things, booking hotel rooms for the freak-offs, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with the required freak-off supplies, including controlled substances, baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting, cleaning the hotel rooms after the freak-offs to try to mitigate room damage, arranging for travel for victims, commercial sex workers, and Combs to and from the freak-offs. Okay, let me just stop there. Okay, let me just stop there. Let me just say this is completely a rumor. Okay, I don't know this for fact. This is pure speculation, but I'm just going to say it. I have a friend who is in the hotel industry in Los Angeles, right? That alleges that they know of it within their network of hotels, in their network of socializing with hotels, that P. Diddy and his associates, his entourage, have big bills to settle, or if not have settled already, because of these horrific parties that he would throw. These freak-offs is what we're going to call them, okay? That is another aspect that I'm not sure if that we'll ever know, but they would do a lot of things that, again, like maybe not Eyes Wide Shut, would look PG-13 against what he really actually did at these hotels. Okay. That for it right now is a rumor. Again, I will not confirm that as fact. That is just what I've heard through the grapevine. So we'll see if that will ever come to light. Okay. So they resupplied Combs with requested supplies, delivering large sums of cash to Combs to pay the commercial sex workers, and scheduling, again, this part is wild to me, scheduling the delivery of IV fluids, okay? The IV drips to me is just another level. In or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residences in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics, and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. Okay, so this man was ready to go. All right? This guy was ready to keep doing what he was doing. His associates, his employees, his entourage, they were ready to keep resupplying him and keep his operation going, basically, is what this is saying to me. Okay, so this is gross. This is absolutely gross, right? He fully thought in his mind that he was going to continue doing the Eyes Wide Shut type thing, inviting people. If you guys don't remember the details, so I actually think I might have made a video. There was another guy, he was an influencer, and he was actually at the airport. If I can find that video, I will also link it down in my description below. But this is a fellow influencer who at random was at the airport. He was waiting for his flight, and some guy he was talking to was actually like a male escort, and he talked about being participant in these Diddy freak-offs, and that, Diddy likes masks and stuff like this. So this is basically like what it is. It's gross. Okay. Okay. So this next part really goes into the intimidation tactics, the gang stalking tactics. It says here that Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to cause the victims to engage in freak-offs. Combs maintained control over his victims through, among other things, physical violence, promises of career opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records is crazy to me, okay? Monitoring their medical records, meaning that either Diddy and his associates had access to the healthcare industry, which I doubt I doubt that even with HIPAA laws, I don't know that they would go that far to release these records, or they actually requested these medical records through the victims themselves. But going all the way down to the medical records is just beyond crazy. This is another level in anything that I've read before. Okay. And this is me running the account, The Daily Traffic, where I read a lot of Daily Traffic headlines. Okay. This is beyond anything that I've read. Okay. Controlling their housing, supplying them with controlled substances. During and separate from freak-offs, Combs, among other things, hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims at times by their hair. These assaults often resulted in injuries that took days or weeks to heal. Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participating in freak-offs. Victims believed they could not refuse Combs' demands without risking their financial or job security, or without repercussions in the form of physical or emotional abuse. Combs also used insensitive, embarrassing, incriminating recordings that he made during freak-offs as collateral to ensure the continued obedience and silence of the victims. Okay. It does talk about the raid on his residences, how they basically recovered firearms, someone as dark as P. Diddy, none of that is surprising to me. This part gets a little dark right here. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise at times witnessed Combs' violence towards victims or the victim's injuries caused by Combs without intervening. Instead, members and associates of the Combs enterprise helped conceal the violence and abuse by, among other things, assisting Combs in monitoring and preventing victims from leaving locations such as hotels or Combs residences. These occasions included instances in which a victim was required to remain in hiding. Okay. I did want to mention back here where it did mention that, P. Diddy was accused of basically using violence against the victims, dragging them through the hotels, throwing objects at them. This was referenced directly in Cassie Ventura's lawsuit. Okay, so this is an allegation that she made that it didn't have the proof right there and then, right? Which was a hotel security footage video. But what she alleged before that actually came out, CNN did obtain that video, was that he hit, kicked, dragged her through the hallways, through her hair, and exactly that. All of these allegations were vindicated when this footage was obtained and showed and broadcasted to the world, right? So I just wanted to mention that this closely resembles Cassie Ventura's case or her incident, and then this one does as well. So allegedly, because it says here, the occasions included instances in which a victim was required to remain in hiding, sometimes for several days at a time, to recover from injuries Combs inflicted without being publicly observed. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise also assisted Combs in locating and contacting victims who attempted to flee his abuse. Okay. Now this is an allegation. This is pure rumor mill speculation, but I also did read that some of the industry girls, like I believe Danity Kane was a girls' music group that was founded by P. Diddy, but basically I believe it was Audrey or one of the other women. Anyway, some music industry insider was basically like, this basically sums up what I thought or suspected why Cassie was sent to Hawaii to heal, right? So it is rumored that Cassie was sent to Hawaii at that time because she sustained such, impactful injuries by Combs' abuse. Okay. That's just an example. It's a rumor. That is alleged, but it's, again, just an example. All right. So there is a piece in this indictment that mentions that P. Diddy tried to bribe a security guard to, there was a victim that tried to escape the freak off. The hotel security guard basically was assisting this victim, and Diddy basically tried to security guard to relinquish the victim back to Diddy's, control. The security guard he did deny or refuse the money, which I'm so glad he did, but somehow Diddy was able to bribe somebody to erase the security footage, right? Somehow, I'm not sure how CNN obtained it or how they recovered that footage, but that is the actual footage that he tried to erase. Okay, so part 19, this is what the government or what this indictment is trying to do. As a result of committing the offense alleged in count 2 of this indictment, Sean Combs, P. Diddy, aka all these names, the defendant shall forfeit to the United States pursuant to Title 18 United States Code Section 1594 any and all property, real and personal, involved in, used, or intended to be used to commit or facilitate the commission of said offense, and any and all property traceable to such property, and all, basically everything. They want everything. They want to take everything away from him. Okay, so the indictment are basically details that are summarized. We did learn a little bit more, that I suppose that I didn't quite cover in the previous lawsuits, such as the IV drips. And maybe that was a detail that was just highlighted through this indictment, and it actually did previously exist on these lawsuits. I just thought that was a pretty startling detail. Now, as I mentioned, they are pursuant to everything that he owns. They want him to be absolutely penniless. This is the actual proposed package that his lawyer is arguing on behalf of him. They're arguing a $50 million bond, okay, which is a really expensive bond, okay? And they're trying to secure that through his $48 million mansion that is located in Miami, and then also trying to secure this by his mother's house, I believe, also in Miami. This is secure, I guess, securely signed by his sister, the mother of his daughter, and 3 adult sons. So they're basically, utilizing themselves as collateral, or their possessions as collateral. But and then he's also wanting, because he wants to post $50 million bail, he's also wanting to stay in Miami. Okay. I don't trust any of this. I personally believe, and there was a weird thing that went on when he first got, I guess, raided. His personal jet was found traveling. There's different stories around it, but personal jet was found traveling to a different country. I don't trust this guy, so who knows what's going to happen. I do find concern that there were some details that were left out of this particular indictment. For instance, in Lil Rod's lawsuit, he did mention minors being at some of these parties. I'm not sure that they were freak-off parties or if they were just parties. There were a lot of, that is part of the indictment, that there were a lot of drugging and spiking of the alcoholic beverages. And there's just a lot, it just makes me curious. The whole organization, Cuba Gooding Jr. is one prime example of a celebrity being at these parties, not necessarily the freak off, but he was at P. Diddy's parties, which a lot of these celebrities might have been, they might have been unsuspecting, just to give them the benefit of the doubt. But it just seems like there's a lot missing. Okay, so that's what I'll say, and that's what I'm going to close off with. Guys, let me know what you think about all of this, what you think about the outcome of this. Do you think they're actually going to get Diddy? I don't know. I want to know your comments and your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching this. I will talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye.